Okay, Madam Mayor.
Great, so I'll go ahead and call this April 12th regular meeting to order. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Cease is traveling, so excused, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Casa Grande, I haven't heard from. Baclan as well is traveling.
That's my understanding. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, could you call for the vote, please?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Osenga?
Yes.
Casa Grande?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved. Approved on tonight's consent agenda, Resolution 2021-039, accepting the 2021 Volunteer Fire Assistance Grant in the amount of $4,979 and authorizing the matching funds of $1,131 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-040, authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with West Tech Marketing for the purchase of the Stancil Multimedia Logging Recorder System to include the necessary hardware and technician travel accommodations for installation for the police department in an amount not to exceed $22,416.80 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-044, updating the mobile vendor and roving vendor policy for permitting vendors on city-owned property. Resolution 2021-045, retroactively amending the 2020 budget to record expenditures of $395,755.48 paid by the state of Alaska on behalf of the city toward the city's public employees retirement system liability for the period January through December 2020 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-046, supporting legislature funding to the Alaska Vocational Technical Center and other Alaska educational institutions through House Bill 100. You have also approved the March 22nd, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes and the March 17th City Council special meeting minutes and the April 1st City Council special meeting minutes.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda are proclamations and awards. The first is National Library Week. Is there anyone here from the library to accept this?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'll have you come stand up here.
Good, thank you for coming tonight. So, whereas libraries everywhere play a vital role in transforming lives by supporting and enriching the quality of life in their communities, campuses, and schools, even throughout the COVID-19 pandemic worldwide. And whereas librarians are trained professionals helping people of all ages and backgrounds find and interpret the information they need to create, learn, live, seek employment, or work in a challenging economy. And whereas libraries serve as a crucial technology hubs that provide internet access, public access computers, equipment, online resources, and assistance. And whereas libraries promote and support literacy in all its forms through continuing education, cultural engagement, early literacy, lifelong learning, personal productivity programs, research and recreational opportunities, and whereas libraries continuously grow and evolve to meet the information needs of every community member in order to strengthen their communities, and whereas the work named above continues through digital, remote, virtual, curbside delivery, and in-person visits, and whereas the American Library Association had called us to celebrate the National Library Week on April 4th through 10th, 2021 with Welcome to Your Library theme. And whereas all are encouraged to visit the library and return overdue items, knowing that there are no longer overdue fines for items in the Seward Community Library. You heard it here first.
Wow.
So that book that you owe $100 on, bring her back. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby proclaim library amnesty for the citizens of Seward and encourage everyone to use digital, online, and in-person library resources. Dated this 12th day of April 2021. And I will give you a chance to say a few words if you like.
Well, the Seward Community Library Association and the library are just excited to be able to accept the proclamation. We're excited for the amnesty for the people with overdue books, and excited to move forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, now to my favorite part of the evening. Okay, you Battle the Books girls, come on up here.
Yes.
Yay! Stand up here.
You guys can go right up there.
And then face the camera. Why don't you guys stand here so everyone can see you. Welcome, ladies. So before I give your proclamations, I want you each to say your name and then your favorite book out of the Battle of the Books that you read. So Lucy, why don't you start?
My favorite book was It Wasn't Me.
Was it me? Do you remember who the author was?
Dana Allison Murphy.
Oh, nice, very good. So, and then Lucy, what's your last name, Lucy?
Bamford.
Bamford, Lucy Bamford. Okay, go ahead.
My name's Emily Anger, and my favorite book was Class Action by Stephen Frank.
Very good.
My name's McKenna DeSermia, and my favorite book was Blended by Sharon M. Draper. Hi, my name's Maddie Haas, and my favorite book was Rainy Dreaming by Wendell Van Trapp.
Excellent. Good job, girls. So now here's the proclamation that you get to take home. But the real important thing was what a good job you girls did and what a good showing for Seward winning this year. So whereas the Battle of the Books is a statewide Alaskan reading, motivation, and comprehension program sponsored by the Alaska Association of School Librarians, and whereas the goal of the program are to encourage and recognize students who enjoy reading, broaden reading interests, increase reading comprehension, and promote academic excellence, whereas in early February, 4 students from the Seward Middle School competed and won the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District meet, and whereas February 23rd, 2021, these students went on to win the State of Alaska Battle of the Books for the 2020-2021 school year challenge, and whereas to prepare for the battle, each student read 10 books, usually multiple times, and whereas 3 out of the 4 of these students have competed at the state level every year since they were in 4th grade. And what grade are you in now, girls? 7th grade. So now, therefore, I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby recognize and congratulate Emily, Lucy, McKenna, and Maddie for winning the 2020-21 State of Alaska Battle of the Books and wish them all the best in their future academic careers. Let's give a loud round of Good job. And I think it was Councilmember DeMoss that brought this forward. So thank you for making sure that these girls got recognition. Good job, girls. We'll see you next year. Now, you know, how can you compete with cute little girls? But
there's Dan.
There's Dan Seeley. Come on up here, Dan.
Yeah, I'm the old guy among the Seabees. In fact, I'm so old that I had Sue and John as students in high school. And I might say also that the Seabee recognition by the council goes way back to my days. In 1973, the first Iditarod race, and we had this going on, accommodation and so forth. So, and then the thing I wanted to read.
Yes.
Just kidding. But I did want to mention that for the first race in 1973, the city council talked Dot Barterson into representing the city and going to Nome. And she was up there, you know, like sort of like took a week and then went up there and then waited and waited and waited. And I was third in that race, 20 and a half days. My kid Mitch has a track record now, 8 days, 3 hours and
Wow.
some change.
Wow.
So you can see things have changed.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not Dallas, but I'll be happy. By the way, he's has called twice and said, be sure to adequately thank the consul. So consider yourself adequately.
Well, before I read our proclamation, I wanted to note some other awards that Dallas won this year. So he won the Alaska Air Transit Spirit of Alaska Award, besides winning a race. He won the Lakefront Anchorage First Musher to the Yukon Award. He won the Ryan Air Gold Coast Award. He won the Northern Bank Achieve More Award. And here's another cute thing. So one of his dogs, Gamble, won the City of Nome Lolly Medley Memorial Golden Harness Award. So Gamble needs an extra bone.
All those awards add up to about 20 grand.
Oh.
So that's nice.
This proclamation comes with no money. So whereas in 2012, at just 25 years old, Dallas Seavey won the Iditarod Championships for the first time and became the youngest person in history to win the race in 9 days, 4 hours, 29 minutes, and 26 seconds. And whereas in 2014, Dallas Seavey won the Iditarod Champion for the second time and set a new record in finishing in 8 days, 13 hours, 4 minutes, and 19 seconds. And whereas in 2015, Seavey won his third Iditarod Championship by crossing the finish line in 8 days, 18 hours, 13 minutes, and 6 seconds. And in 2016, Seavey's fourth win broke his own record by finishing in 8 days, 11 hours, 20 minutes, and 16 seconds. And on March 15th, 2021, Dallas won the 49th Iditarod for the 5th time, crossing the finish line in 7 days, 14 hours, 8 minutes, and 53 seconds. And whereas Seavey's win ties him with Rick Swenson, the only other musher to win the race 5 times. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby proclaim Dallas Seavey the 2021 Iditarod Championship and acknowledge his many contributions to the Iditarod race and dog sled racing in Alaska. Thank you from the City of Seward. Please thank him and tell him, give him our adequate thanks.
Thank you.
But I'll let you have a few more words. We love you.
I tried to add up how many races the Seabees, I'm responsible for this, right? Had I taken up stamp collecting or something like that, the lives of all my kids and grandkids and so forth would be a lot different. But I think we have something around 60 races. That's all of us together. Mitch has like 20, I think it's 26. Dallas has around 8. I have 5, and then there's a few others in there. But anyway, what can I say? We're gone to the dogs.
And next we have Jordan. I think he's hiding in the hallway because he's modest. Superhero Jordan, so right here. So this is my sincere appreciation to Correctional Officer Jordan Fletch, and do commend him for his selfless act of heroism and proudly present him with this award for life-saving on behalf of the grateful citizens of Seward. Thank you. Next we have Officer Woodard. Is he available? You have to come stand right here. So I was trying to check with your chief to see if there was a great nickname that you had, and I think I decided on Superhero Woodard. How's that? And this is another award of life-saving. So what an honor tonight with all these presentations and awards. Yeah, you have to turn around and face the camera. Which your city manager told you to do that. And you know what? Would the whole family come up here?
Well, there's just the 2 of us.
Would you guys come up here? We all know as public servants, it's also the family that serves. So let's have these guys up here. So whereas on March 14th, 2021, police officer Morgan Woodard responded to a call at a residential address on a report of a person overdosing. And whereas Officer Woodard was the first one on the scene, entered the residence and observed the person on the floor unconscious, but breathing in a labored fashion. And whereas taking note of the surrounding scene, Officer Woodard determined that action needed to be taken immediately in order to prevent the loss of life. Whereas Officer Woodard moved the subject into a recovery position and ran to his patrol vehicle outside to retrieve his personal Narcan applicator. Whereas upon returning to the scene, Officer Woodard administered 1 dose of Narcan and observed a change in breathing as well as color. Whereas Fire Chief Clinton Kreitz with the Seward Volunteer Fire Department arrived on scene and it was determined a 2nd dose was necessary. And whereas Officer Woodard provided a 2nd dose of Narcan, which Chief Kreitz administered, bringing the subject's oxygen saturation back to a normal level and thus saving the person's life. And whereas through his professionalism, quick thinking, and divisive action, Officer Woodard prevented serious injury or death. Whereas the City of Seward is honored and grateful to have Police Officer Morgan Woodard as a member of the Seward Police Department. Whereas Officer Morgan Woodard is commended for his historic efforts. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, do hereby express my sincere appreciation to Police Officer Morgan Woodard and do commend him for his selfless act of heroism and proudly present him with this award of life-saving on behalf of the grateful citizens of Seward. Thank you so much. He's not going to say a few words, but I will say you've been thanked more than once for saving a life. I think the chief said 4.5, 5.5. One, the half, 3.5. The half was because they were in partnership, not that he saved half. But thank you for all you do, and thank your family.
Thank you.
Great, thank you guys. Okay, next is the mayor's report, so I'll just keep on talking. I just wanted to let the council know that on February 9th, I was invited by Kate Head to go over to Kenai to their facility and have about an hour with Congressman Don Young. So I did bring our federal priorities. I brought a chamber book, and so we were able to talk about our federal legislative priorities. Another group that was there was, since we were at Cape Head, they really talked about jobs and opportunity on the Kenai Peninsula. So AvTech was discussed quite a bit. The congressman is a big proponent of vocational technical, so that's good. And the second thing I wanted to say was I wanted to, I know that the volunteer fire department had a function this weekend, and I wanted to read out the award winners at that function. And some of you might have seen this on Facebook. But the State of Alaska Firefighter of the Year and the Chief's Award for most calls ran in was Lisa Music. The Seward Fire Department Firefighter of the Year was Katrina Ricks. Community Service Award Organization was El Zernia. Community Service Award Individual was Lori Landstrom. And award for distinguished service and most training hours was Julie Kreitz. Wow. So you might notice that it was a sweep by the females in the fire department this year. So I just want to just take a second and thank all the volunteers, all our fire department employees, but most especially those award winners for from this weekend's banquet. So we could just thank them. And that is all I have unless there's questions. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly report. Not sure that...
I haven't heard from
Okay, thank you. And then following that is City Manager's report that starts on page 11.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had one PO that was issued for $17,990 for electric department. It's for the Fort Raymond Substation Power Plant Alarm Auto Dialer Edition. And so one thing we're going to be adding, because the questions came up last meeting, was what exactly is this for? So we're going to put a little paragraph underneath each of these so you can understand what it is. That's something we added. So I'll take any questions.
I'll look around if there's questions. I think I have a question. I just have to find it. Did you have a question? I
comment why you might be.
Okay,
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you for the tour of the electric department. They took me on a tour and those guys are working hard and it's really impressive. Our generator plant and the new director is very easy to speak in layman terms when it comes to our electric, and I'm really excited to learn more, and any opportunity that we can get as council members to be able to expand our knowledge or education on how an electric utility works, I would be open to.
Okay, we'll pass that on.
Thank you.
That's good. I did have two questions, or one question and a comment. So, thank you for putting an update on the note that finance is continuing with the audit. And I'm sorry I didn't ask you prior to the meeting. It just slipped my mind. Have you heard when the audit will be completed? And that's okay if I can follow up with you tomorrow.
Nothing big. We don't have anything beyond what's in the CMR at this point. We'll continue to update that in every CMR until we are done. As far as the water side, it's the biggest barrier when I talked to Doug the other day was just businesses opening. And then on the electric side, I'll follow back up with Rob, but I think we're still waiting on those last 11 meters.
And then I wanted to say thanks to Doug for putting that note in there about that DEC inspection of the Low Point Lagoon. So we'll look for that in the future. I just wanted to make sure that that was noted, that if anyone's interested in that, that's in the manager's report. Any other comments? Councilmember McClure.
Well, since Doug came in, last meeting, I gave a shout out to Public Works for their maintenance of the winter roads, and this week I got 3 totally unsolicited compliments for you guys, again, that people are happy, and when things are reported, you're right on top of them, so good job for everyone in the Public Works and the street work department.
Go ahead.
I do have one more question. Is the finance director on full-time now?
Yes.
Yes. And are we any longer paying the contractor, Valdemir?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is the city attorney's report. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Fairly humdrum month in the legal department, which we all like.
So we like
So there was a question that came up about a past rate adjustment in the utilities we looked at. There was a question about paying for an employee's college that we helped out with. There was a records request where we review emails for privilege. There was a bid for portable toilets at the campground. Bids were close enough that bidder preference had been analyzed, the local bidder preference had been analyzed, and also there had been a mistake made in a bid. So that requires a little bit of legal work to figure out, what do you do, when there's been a mistake made. We had looked, this is very early in the month, I think it was a second round of looking at the ethics ordinance that you may have adopted, or maybe it's still before you. And we had, we made a request for a refund. City Council a while back had had contributed $25,000 to a local business incubator type program operated by the Genesee Fishermen's Association. And we put together that request, which was rather emphatically declined. Took a little look at your shuttle bus contract, which had been terminated, and I think is probably now back in place, in a little bit of an adjusted version of it. And toward the, later on the agenda, I think there's going to be, do you want to sell property type question that comes before you, and we had worked a little bit on a draft agreement, just in the abstract of, if this goes forward, this is what the agreement might look like. So that sort of summarizes what we've done. I am glad it was a quieter month, because the first 2 months of the year, legal fees were running at a little bit over $17,000, which is more than you would want. And, I think things will normalize a little bit here in March and April. Happy to take questions.
I guess I just want to hear you correctly. So we asked for the money back from the Bering Sea Fishermen's Association with that ocean cluster project, and they initially declined it, returning the money, or?
Yes, they've declined to return the 25,000.
Interesting. Thank you. Any other questions for the city attorney? Go ahead.
Just a clarification, they initially declined, but did they end up giving it back?
No, they have no intention.
Wow. Any other questions? We'll have to follow up on that at another time.
I guess my only question would be what's the plan on that then?
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, so what they were saying is 2018, I believe was the year that they paid for it, and then when the chamber got their money back was 2019, which we have not given anything for 2019. So they're saying 2018 was there and used. That's their response. Am I correct?
Right, the concept of this was there was going to be a 3-year program. The program was abandoned, I think, after about a year. But the way they sequenced the various contributions that they assembled was that the city of Seward was applied towards the first year, which is, the program was actually up and running. And so their position is you gave us money, we gave you a service in return. What you gave us was about the value of what was received, 1 year of a 3-year program.
Well, I have to think about that a little bit. Thank you. Anything else for us?
I have not heard anything further about the, something I've mentioned a couple times, this initiative by the Department of Law to somehow wring some money out of local communities that are home rule municipalities. So I think that the idea has lost momentum. Still something, I guess, to keep an eye on as the budget process continues to unfold in June.
Next on the agenda is presentations, and it's Chugach involvement in Seward for the Future, presentation by Kelly Baker. Is Kelly here, or is she going to be connected?
She's on.
Oh, Colin, okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome, Kelly. You're here for the council presentation. We can hear you great. It looks like we're getting your slides going. And you have 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm starting now. So, next slide. So the first slide is in reference to your 2030 Comprehensive Economic Development Plan. Update for the City of Seward, it reads, the values of the community reflect and drive the quality of its life. We feel this proposed project is in direct alignment with your constituents' vision and values, and we aspire to enhance not only the quality of life of the people we serve, but also enhance the community. Specifically within the economic base section, it reads, we value a stable economic environment, economic diversity, year-round businesses, environmental responsible industry, and employment that promote a high standard of living. We feel the approval of land sale to Chugach is in direct alignment with your constituents' economic vision and values. The Chugach Regional Health Center key economic benefits include $60 million of federal funding to Alaska over the next 20 years, new jobs through a request for proposal process for contractors and constructional personnel, approximately 48 permanent healthcare positions, 28 new jobs created to fully staff the facility, which will increase local business revenues and increase business to cities' water, sewer, and electricity utilities. Next slide, please. Chugach mission and values. We're a tribal consortium created to promote self-determination to the 7 native tribes of the Chugach region. We provide health and social services, education and training, and technical assistance to the Chugach native people in a way which is acceptable to native cultural values and tradition in order to enhance the well-being of our people by continuing to strengthen tribes and increase determination opportunities for community-operated tribal programs. Our ultimate vision is building on the inherent strength from our cultural values. Chugachmute shall work to help member tribes achieve their chosen destiny. Next slide, please. We serve the 7 tribes and communities within the Chugach region. Next slide, please. The Chugachmute service area spans 15,625 square miles. It is composed of 7 tribal communities with a combined population of 2,200 Alaska Natives or American Indians. And you can see a little bit on the map where Nanwillick, Fort Graham, Seward, Chiniga. Map may look small, but that's our service area. Next slide, please. Health disparities exist between Alaska Native people and Alaska non-Native and U.S. white populations on a number of mortality measures. The darker line that you see in this slide represents Alaska Native people statewide. Cancer, heart disease, and unintentional injury are the top 3 leading causes of death. Congress has stated that a major national goal of the United States is to provide the resources, processes, and structure that will enable Indian tribes and tribal members to obtain the quantity and quality of healthcare services and opportunities that will eradicate the health disparities between Indians and the general population of the United States. Practical access to a regional health center is crucial for the Alaska Native population, which is burdened by low health status compared with other Americans. This joint venture construction program affords us with an opportunity to provide access to services to eradicate health disparities experienced by Alaska Natives. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of our North Star Clinic. So as previously stated, Alaska Natives, American Indians are the 2nd highest race population in Seward. Currently, the clinic has 13 full-time staff that serve the Alaska population, that serve the Seward population as well as populations throughout our region. The clinic is equipped with a telehealth cart to support local and regional healthcare needs, and reports indicate staffing capacity are under capacity to serve the needs of Alaska Native people living in Seward and throughout our region. Insufficient capacity and resources severely restrict healthcare services that can be provided. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of an aerial view of where Fort Graham is. Fort Graham is located about 30 minutes across the bay from Homer. The next 4 slides, you'll see our village clinics. Our village clinics are staffed by local community health aides. The community health aides are able to provide care to local community members with oversight from a physician and/or advanced practice provider currently based in Seward. All of our village clinics are equipped with telehealth carts so local community members can receive care outside of the scope of practice of local health aides. So you have Nanwillick, Titlik, and Chiniga. Next slide, please. Our health service mission and vision. Our mission ultimately is to improve health and achieve health equity through access to skilled health workforce, quality services, and innovative programs. Our ultimate vision is healthier individuals, families, and communities. Next slide, please. This is a glimpse of our 2019 and 2023 strategic plan. Our mission is to enhance the well-being of our people, and our people have achieved their chosen destiny. And you can see goal 1 is increased delivery of services to communities to improve the quality of life for our people, revitalize the language of the Chugachmute area, enhance the ability of communities to be self-sustainable, develop funding strategies, define and implement board and community information reporting requirements, and prepare employee development plans. Next slide, please. We offer state and federal programs aimed at wellness, building resilient communities, and strong families. Some of the services provided are primary care, behavioral health and substance abuse, dental care, disease management, specifically diabetes, nutrition and fitness education, telehealth, telemedicine, community health aid programs, EMS coordination and training program, and purchase and referred care. Next slide, please. The Indian Health Services Joint Venture Construction Program is a program opportunity that strives to reverse the health disparities discussed earlier. This joint venture construction program entails a tribally owned healthcare facility that is built per IHS criteria using non-IHS funds. In exchange, IHS will provide operation and maintenance of the facility under a 20-year nominal lease. Chugachmute, we were selected one of 5, chosen out of the country, and approved for this program. We also received letters of support from Congress as the Alaska support, national support for this program. Next slide, please. Sorry, got lost a little bit. So as written in your Seward Economic Development Plan, the values of the community reflect and drive the quality of its life. We feel this proposed project is direct alignment, and we wish to enhance the quality of life of the people we serve. In the healthcare section, it states we value effective, accessible, and affordable healthcare. It states to explore the feasibility of providing veterans care locally. We've held a VA contract for the past 16 years and do provide services to veterans. Support medical healthcare professionals to relocate to Seward. If this project approved, it would bring an estimated 28 new jobs, full-time employees relocating to Seward. Under the community partnership section, approve resolutions of support for endeavors and projects of various organizations and individuals which benefit the community. Ultimately, this would expand access to care and expand health service programs available to Seward community members as well as those served throughout the Chugach region. Within the economic base, encourage development of infrastructure expansion plans for currently undeveloped residential and commercial property. The land that we're proposing for purchase is included in the institutional land development section, and support Seward schools to attract and retain families. With the new 28 jobs, estimated jobs to come to Seward, comes with attracting families as well as school students to the Seward community. Next slide, please. The goals and objectives and implementation plan, just, brought a couple bullet points from the economic development. Support efforts of village and regional Alaska Native corporations, support Alaska Native cultural events and activities, encourage development of Seward's industrial zone, support existing public institutions in their efforts to maintain, expand, and develop. Promote residential and commercial development with the city of Seward and its vicinity. Support and develop opportunities for individual and community health improvement. And this project, we feel, would meet these objectives. Next slide, please. So the Chugachmute Regional Health Center is institutionally zoned. It's about approximately $18 million project. It would serve as a regional health facility, about 15,000 square feet, located in a tsunami-free zone. It would be convenient and accessible location to those that we serve in Seward, and target completion date would be about November 2023. Next slide. So practical access to a regional health center is crucial for the Alaska Native population, which is burdened by low health status compared with other Americans. This joint venture construction program affords us with an opportunity to provide access to services to eradicate health disparities experienced by Alaska Natives. Next slide, please. And again, we feel our organization's mission, vision, and values share the same vision in supporting your community and the tribal communities we serve throughout the Chugach region. We would appreciate your approval in affording us an opportunity to expand access to those we serve so we can help to enhance the health and well-being of Alaskans and Alaskan community. Next slide, please. Brianna, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Was that beat for me for 10 minutes? Okay, it was. Okay.
Yep, great job. I know you had to speak fast, so thanks for your presentation. I'll look around. Are there any questions for Kelly? Kelly, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate the update and the information.
Great, thank you.
Next on the agenda are public hearings. The first public hearing is Resolution 2020-038. Madam Clerk, if you could read the title into the minutes.
Resolution 2021-038 is authorizing the city manager to negotiate the terms for the sale at appraised market value. Excuse me, I just want to make sure. Of 3.31 acres of city-owned land located at Fort Raymond Sub. Replat number 1, Lot 7A with the physical address of 2101 Diamond Boulevard to Chugashmiut.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-038.
A second?
So at this point, administration, I'll let
Community development would move forward with working with Chugashmiut for the actual layout and design and product development. Any questions?
we'll go, thank you, very thorough. We'll go first to public hearing, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments submitted or anyone signed in to be called?
We do, Madam Mayor. The first is, I have a letter from Dr. Stephen Wall to read. Dear Seward City Council and Seward community, I would like to share this letter of support for the proposed resolution of the sale of city-owned land to Chugashmiut for the development of the new Chugashmiut Regional Health Center. We have before us a special opportunity with the amazing selection of Seward as location for one of 5 IHS joint venture healthcare facility construction projects identified in 2020. Alaska has been challenged by limited access to healthcare since the earliest days as a territory. With vast areas of sparsely populated land and special close-knit communities built on self-reliance, healthcare has been a fundamental concern for Alaskans from the beginning. Building on the ancient foundation of traditional healing throughout Alaska, the U.S. Department of Interior saw the need for a formal healthcare infrastructure across the Great Land. I have in my personal library a copy of the medical handbook for the Alaska School Service, which was published over 100 years ago in 1913 as a tool to support territorial school teachers in the role of doctor for their villages, isolated by long distances, lack of roads, and extreme weather from larger cities with hospitals, nurses, physicians, surgeons, and the host of medical services elsewhere available. This in turn became the foundation for the cutting-edge thinking that ultimately produced the phenomenal Alaska Community Health Aid Program, which has been a model for the entire world on how to provide medical care where there is no doctor, to borrow from the title of similar program model used in remote regions all over the globe. Chugashmiut is honored to be part of the Alaska Community Health Aid Program, and this new facility will be a powerful tool to continue to train and support community health aides throughout our region. You will remember that this continues to be the only source of medical care in a number of our villages. The development of this facility will bring many good things to Seward itself as well. This will increase local medical services, expanding over the next 20 years our access to primary care, nursing care with support to public health, dental care, and eye care. It will continue active programs that Chugashmiut has in behavioral health, nutrition and diabetes care, elder care, and access to pharmacy. My family moved to the Kenai Peninsula over 50 years ago, first settling in Kenai and later in Sterling. I graduated from high school in Soldotna and was pleased to finally move to Seward a year ago, knowing that the Kenai Peninsula is still one of the greatest places on earth to live. I joined the Chugashmiut Health Services team February of last year, just in time for COVID, and the Seward community has embraced my family. My 2 youngest daughters are currently enrolled in Seward High School, and all 4 of my daughters have worked or are currently working in local businesses. I have been able to purchase a home and bicycle to work every day. This is a great place to live. The expansion of Seward's community health services through the construction of the proposed expanded Chugashmiut Regional Health Center will make it even better. Please strongly consider the advantages of the proposed sale of city land for the construction of the new expanded Chugashmiut Regional Health Center. Thank you for your kind consideration of my comments.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to contact Arnie Hatch by telephone. Arnie. You are with City Council and you have 5 minutes for public hearing testimony.
Okay, can you hear me fine?
Yes.
All right, thank you. My name is Arnie Hatch. Live at 1133 Cliffview Place. I'm a lifelong resident of Seward and a healthcare consumer of the North Star Health Clinic since it opened its doors in 1987. The topic I want to speak about tonight is how special the opportunity for this new regional health clinic in Seward is. From the improved health care of the indigenous people around Seward and the 4 villages, already mentioned on Warlockport, Graham, Geneva, and Titilik, to the economic benefit of more than 40 year-round sustainable jobs in Seward. The Indian Health Service partnership offerings don't happen very often. There's only been 30 facilities since 1991. So Chugashmute prepared for this opportunity in advance, and when the Indian Health Service announced they were accepting applications a few years ago, they were ready. With over 40 project applicants submitted, Chugashmute was one of only 5 awarded nationwide. That's why I feel that we are so fortunate to have this opportunity. To give you some perspective, the Indian Health Service joint venture projects in much of the rest of the U.S. often face different circumstances than Chugashmute. In typical Indian countries, land acquisition is not the challenge that it is for tribal entities in Alaska. So I hope you appreciate the time and effort Chugashmute has spent trying to purchase a site for this clinic, and will approve Resolution 2021-038 tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then last we have comments from Jonathan Gage. I'm writing in support of Resolution 2021-038. I live here in our community and currently use services provided by Chugashmute Health Services. The staff and services have been positive for me. Seeing the opportunity for their growth in capacity and services and staffing would be great for end users like myself and our community in my point of view. Thank you. And that concludes our testimony.
And I'll just check and see if there's anyone in the audience that would like to provide 5 minutes of testimony. Yes. State your name and inside or outside city limits. How's that for hearing? If she sits there, or should she?
Yeah.
You're okay.
That's fine. Yep.
Thank you. You can stay there, Susan.
Okay. My name is Susan Swiderski, and I live at 810 2nd Avenue, Seward, Alaska. I too support the sale of this land to Chugashmute for the North Star Clinic. It will indeed have a significant economic impact, and I agree with everything that's been said in that regard. But I also see a valuable cultural enhancement that it will provide our town. I grew up in Alaska, and I came here in 1969 as a little girl. I mostly grew up in Anchorage. I went to elementary school, junior high, and high school, and I feel as though I didn't learn anything about the Alaska Native people. And I'm ashamed of that, actually. And now as an adult, in the last 8 years, I have really been educating myself and reading books and taking courses at the University of Alaska Anchorage, and just really studying the incredible culture of the Alaska Native people. In the past 2 years, I've been trying to work on a cultural tourism aspect to introduce to the industry here in Seward. ATIA had a presentation 2 years ago on cultural tourism, and I think our town is lacking that and would really be enhanced by having that. This ties in because I enjoyed hearing Ms. Baker's presentation and mentioning the cultural events that could possibly take place at this new facility. There's been a renaissance going on all over the world for indigenous people. People are becoming interested in their history and their cultures and who they were then and who they are today, because it is enriching and it's fascinating, and it really helps all of us to learn from each other. I want to mention 2 things quickly. Seward was founded in the early days. Mary Lowell was a full indigenous woman, Sukbiak, and she was married to a settler who came from Maine. Frank, her husband, moved north, and Mary stayed here in Seward with her children, and she died here. Just before dying, she sold her property to the founders of Seward, and that's what we are enjoying today. And then another prominent Native influence was the Jesse Lee home, albeit it was on more somber note. The Jesse Lee home was an orphanage, which we all probably know here. And it took care of the outfall from a lot of the history that took place here, the pandemics that fled through our state. And but we have residents that have grown up here, some of them still alive, and some of them just recently passed that were raised at the Jesse Lee home. I think this is a very high quality proposal. And I think it's going to be beautifully done. I think it's going to be quality on the grounds, the upkeep for a long time. And I just think it's going to, the professionalism behind it, the support that it has, and I think it's a good thing for our community, and I hope we will make this sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion, and then I'll see if there's any questions from council to administration or any discussion.
Just have one thing. I'm totally in support of this. I just have one question that was brought forward to me. On page 73 of the packet, there's a map. And our Public Works Director might want to speak to this, but there's a line that might be incorrectly drawn. If you're looking at the map on 73, looking from bottom to top, the top line of the proposed sale apparently should go to the little bend on the yellow line instead of where it is now. It should go from marker to marker, and so I'd like to ask about that, and I see Jackie has her hand up, so.
I can answer that. So the proposal in front of you tonight, the resolution, will be the negotiation of working with Chugachimute for the actual plat. This is just a diagram of, pretty close to what they had originally requested from you. But community development and the administration will work with them on the layout itself.
Okay. The reason it was brought up is there needs to be access point to the highway at that point if the Public Works moves out there apparently. So that was the issue. So I'd like to make sure that happens in the final. I mean, we've got to accommodate everything, but the whole project itself is fantastic. So that was my only question.
I saw
Oh, go ahead,
Professor
go ahead,
Garnier
go ahead.
with her hand.
No, you can go ahead.
I was just going to declare that, just to let everybody know that I in the past have been an alternate board member for Chugachimute that represented this area. I have not been a board member or an alternate board member for Chugachimute for almost close to 2 years now. So I just wanted to declare that publicly so everybody is aware of that.
No confusion that you're.
I am no longer affiliated with Chugachimute in any way.
Thank you. Councilmember Cuthbert?
So this is a little bit different than I've seen to have a purchase and sale agreement prior to having something that's actually being sold. So, I guess.
So at least we know it'll be no less than appraised fair market value and shall be subject to further consideration and final approval by council at a later date. So anything that's negotiated will come back to council for final approval.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Go ahead.
So on behalf of the citizens, as part of the negotiation, because this is first I'll just say, I totally support this project. I think it's a great project, but I also think that this is a really big chunk of land for the citizens of Seward, and I'm turning away 5 to 7 people on a daily basis saying there's no housing in Seward. So with that said, if we're going to be carving out a chunk of land for a contract, just as I would if somebody had 150 acres and somebody wanted to choice pick their piece, they would be responsible for the as-built and replat. Because we wouldn't sell 3.31 acres to anyone else. So I really want to see that as not a cost to the city, because if this deal should fall through, then we're just stuck with 3.31 acres and all the costs associated with that. So that's just my 2 cents. I mean, this is the opportunity where we can put in our 2 cents, or no? Okay, comments, sorry. So can I continue? I'm curious if this proposed 3.31 acres puts the Parks and Rec warehouse out of compliance. I know if Dave Squires was here, there's no alley and no access behind that lot. And so for emergency vehicles, there's only one access into that lot that's being stuck off there in the corner. So,
Do you want to answer that?
We can definitely follow up on that.
I can answer it.
She can
if
answer.
you- So, in the original design, if this property is sold, we've talked with Public Works, we've talked with the fire department about making an access that would be in the back. And, I know that the city is working in negotiations to, move the or the Parks and Rec building, and that, at that point, that would most likely be demoed. The Parks and Rec building would. So it wouldn't limit access emergency-wise, because they would have an alleyway in the back that they don't currently have right now.
Go ahead.
so can I also just make another comment then that I would like to see, since the property is being sold as is and they're willing to assume whatever comes with it, can we include the warehouse? Can we move that parcel down so that they take the warehouse with it?
It's because it's two separate parcels. The Parks and Rec building is its own parcel, and that would be a different resolution and a different layout. I mean, I know that Chugachimute at one point was interested in that possibly for additional land, but at this time it wasn't, because we know that it's a couple years down the road before we can do that type of work with the Parks and Rec building. I've always just looked at them as two different parcels. The public hearing tonight is for this lot, and it hasn't included that other lot.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely a public hearing for this lot, but this lot is a proposed lot. So back on the public hearing, I would like to see that the Parks and Rec building is included as part of the 3.31 acres. So if that means moving that top line down and including the Parks and Rec building, that's something that I would like to see.
Did
And
you
I'll
want
just,
to make a motion for that?
I don't know where you would make the motions. I mean, is it in the resolution or is it in the proposed map?
And the proposed map, again, is just a general proposal.
Right.
The negotiation would be working with administration to negotiate if they wanted to take that parcel or not. I mean, we could incorporate it tonight. It's just the approval or disapproval of selling 3.31 acres. And that 3.3 will be negotiated back and forth and then brought to you as a final layout. And, I mean, I have no problem addressing it and bringing it forward with the Chugachimute at the time of negotiation.
Bring it up to them. Did you have, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that we're just approving, looking into this, and this is going to change. This is not set in stone in any way whatsoever. Even the shape of the lot and all that other stuff is gonna be up for debate. I guess I'm just a little concerned that we're starting to interject different things into this without, this isn't a really concrete thing yet. We're just approving the going forward with trying to negotiate the sale of 3.31 acres to Chugachimute is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to get to defining what this is right now tonight.
No, sir.
Right.
Did you have further comments?
I do. So again, I am very much in favor of seeing this project go through. I can't support just randomly selecting 3.31 acres in this carved out leaving a piece of land that likely will be hard to utilize back to harbor stuff where you don't have a right of way. So I'm just throwing out there for me to put my vote in. I want to see emergency access to be able to access all lots that are there, and if I'm going to vote on this when it comes forward to us again. Okay, and so just my last comment, just to go off of that, like, I won't be willing to approve crooked lines where it looks like the rest of the lots won't. I mean, ultimately, what I would like to see is the whole thing replatted. That's what I'd like to see. For me to approve 3.31 acres, I want to see how the whole entire thing is going to be utilized. There's a 150-foot easement into that transmission line. And so are there lots that are utilizable to the, I feel again that this is on topic, because if we're talking about a proposed 3.31 acres that I'm going to be okay to vote to sell, I want to know what we're doing with the rest of the land, or what it's going to look like. And then finally, I'd also like to know, are we planning on having this appraised at market value as a 3.31 plat, or are we going to subdivide them into 9,000 square foot lots, 4,500 square foot lots, and then combine to make 3.31, because that's going to make a huge difference in the sales price, huge.
So what is the plan for the appraisal?
So Madam Mayor, there's gonna be 3.31 acres. The rest of the area can be taken can be brought, kind of work session later on to what to do with the rest of the area. Right now, we're just concerned about 3.31 acres. Get you guys moving on their process. Like I said, the rest of the land can come at a later date. We're still working with them. We'll work it with the appraiser when he comes down here in a month, I think.
I guess we had talked about what we're doing with the other portion of the land, and we had talked about, you know, moving public utilities over there. So where are we with that, as far as that design and
Madam Mayor, council member, hello, Demas. So we are, we have discussed that, and we are, looking at moving forward with that. A lot of those items will come forward to this CIP work sessions, and planning and zoning is already scheduled a work session to discuss the municipal land use plan. So those things are all in line, but I really wanted this topic is just specifically for that 3.31 acres, and I know I keep saying that, but Chugachimue is, they're sitting there waiting, and tonight will be the last drop dead night for them. If we choose not to sell it, or we choose to extend it, they're done. They're not gonna, because they have to schedule and have an extensive land survey done, and that's something that you as a citizen, me as a citizen, everyone will benefit from, because it's a cost that the city does not have to pay. And then just to answer an additional question, Attorney Brooks just pointed out that in the purchase price and payment terms, number 2B, it says, in addition to payment of purchase price, purchaser shall pay all costs, fees, included but not limited to survey charges, filing and application fees, certificate of plat costs, title insurance, and recording fees, as may be necessary to properly subdivide and plat the tract of land from which the property is to be purchased.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And if I could just follow up on the concept of how the transaction would close, is that all of that platting would come after the agreement's actually signed. There's a 180-day window in which the purchaser has to accomplish all this, the survey and all of that stuff. Technically, the plat will go in under the name of the current owner, which would be the city of Seward, but it would be a proposed subdivision of the property. And so, unlike some property transactions where all that is done ahead of time, and when you go to the escrow agent, at the end of the day, everything's already been done, and you just change money for a deed. That's not how this one is set up. And the reason for that is because of the concern that Councilmember Casagrande raised is we did not want Seward to go out and do all this and chunk up the property and then have the deal fall through. So the deal is gonna be done, and then there'll be an obligation to accomplish the required platting. So if the deal falls through, it will be because something went wrong in front of the KPV platting authority.
So, and I might just make a comment, I'm not totally sold that this is the appropriate location for the public workshop. So I think that as a community, we need to make sure that we're getting the highest, best value of this location. So I'm looking straight at the public works director, but I already told him that today, so I don't feel bad. So I think there's a larger discussion, you're right, but I'm afraid of having that larger discussion and holding up this very valuable project. Go ahead.
Could you tell me, or could the city attorney tell me, or could administration tell me, if I was to say in my council comments today at the end of the meeting, that in order for me to stay on topic, to vote for this 3.31 chunk out, I want to see simultaneous the rest of the lots get subdivided into as small of pieces as possible ASAP. Like I want, what would that look like? Like what would that timeline look like?
I can answer. I mean, we would have to have, pay for surveyors to come out and do a survey. Then it would have to go in front of planning and zoning. From planning and zoning, it would come back in front of this council, and then it would go to the borough. The borough is on about a 5 to 6 month wait. A lot of those things aren't turning right around. Our timeline, because of public notice and everything else, you're looking at three months on our side just to do, and that's not incorporating the survey at all. But I mean, it would be, we'd have to go out to RFP to have a surveyor come in and do it. We wouldn't fall under the privy of just having our on-call engineering services do it.
Does that answer your question?
No, because I don't understand why, so what's the timeline with this one?
180 days.
180 days.
So you're saying if we wanted to subdivide out for ourselves, it would take at least 3 months before it even went out to get subdivided?
But I think, didn't you propose that what's gonna come back before us is the agreement first, and then they have how long to do all the subdividing and all the things on their end? How long did they have?
180 days.
180 days.
The day of closing.
Yeah. But that's after the agreement comes back before us.
But even the ability to replat that, it still has to be surveyed, still has to be appraised. You know, that's not just pick up the phone and call somebody. Those things they'll have to provide, and in the negotiations that will be discussed. But then at the end, that replat even still has to go through the same process that we would as a city. So we would have to go in front of planning and zoning. Planning and zoning would make the recommendation or not. And with that, at that time, I mean, it's, yes, at any point we could do a work session and draw out a bunch of squares, but in order to move it through to planning and zoning and to the borough and to the council, you're talking at least 3 months, and that's with nothing else on our plates.
Councilmember Osenga? Did you have your?
Yeah, I did. I think my question was answered though.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Councilmember Casagrande?
I don't know how, I mean, I've never been in a situation like this where we're just having something like a proposed purchase and sale agreement before us, and, you know, everything's kind of proposed and just kind of floating out there. So there's no way to really make an amendment or, you know, I'm not sure, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think that it's because we haven't sold city land in ever.
Right.
So I mean, I don't think it's.
To this company, healthcare agency, for this particular project. You know, because certainly the final version of the agreement is going to require that they use it to do what they said they were going to do with it, right? Because that's a community benefit. And the agreement is in the packet, I think prematurely in many respects, but it also amplifies the concept of what you're being asked to agree to. So, for instance, people aren't gonna come in and ask for a deal. I mean, they're gonna pay fair market value. You know, that type of thing. And I think because a lot of real estate agreements are fairly standard language, it's pretty easy to put something like this together and put it in front of you, but there's a lot that still has to be worked out, I think, in terms of the details of exactly what the 3.1 is, you know, where it is, and maybe even some development restraints on where they can put structures on the land or things like that that might get worked out later. There's nothing wrong with doing it. The resolution does say, you know, substantially in the form of the contract, so I don't think it would be, you know, radically different. Like, they're not gonna all of a sudden propose a location that's 2 miles away for the 3.1 acres. It's specific as to that. So, you know, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable that nobody's gonna come up with some crazy provisions that aren't within the spirit of what's in front of you.
Well, and if they did, it still has to come back to us to approve, right? All we're
Yes,
doing,
that's correct.
all we're doing is authorizing the city manager to negotiate with Chugachmewett the sale terms. That's period, end of story. That's what we're talking about tonight.
Right, although to be fair, I mean, people are not gonna expect some curveball from this body.
Right, either way.
4 months from now, when everything's checked out and they've done the engineering work and they know that they can actually, the soils will support the building, then all of a sudden they come back and they go, oh, changed our mind, you know? I mean, that's not good
fair
practice.
negotiation.
So,
Right.
Right.
Councilmember Peskin.
So with that said, you did mention something when you were speaking. If they were to purchase the land, and let's just go down the line in 3 years, they lost grant funding and they figure like it falls through. And they're like, hey, you know what, we could subdivide this into 4,500 square foot lots and make a lot more money and sell it back. Is there anything in this contract that says that they have so much time to do something? Like, what prevents them from buying
I don't
it?
think there's that level of restriction on the property, but my, taking a while to call it.
Is that something that we can legally put on there?
We can put it, just as we have in the past, we can do a purchase agreement that has clauses in it that says if you don't, you know, they have a build date of hopefully by November of 2023. And so if, you know, prior to that, if they didn't, you know, they do the land study, you know, we're gonna ask that they provide us that same information. You can state a reversionary clause in it. I mean, we could do that. We've done it before.
Yeah, usually, they're most common when a municipality is giving a deal, either, you know, no money, you know, they're like donating the property and they go, well, if we're giving it away, you know, you've gotta do what you said you're gonna do, otherwise we're taking it back. Okay? With a deal where you're getting paid fair market value, you wouldn't necessarily be able to say, oh, we're taking the property back, but we'll keep all the money. You know what I mean? You'd have to, maybe you'd get a right to buy it back.
At fair market value
You know,
at that
I mean,
size?
we could put something like that in here, you know, if that was a concern, which it very well could be. You know. It would-
I was just gonna say that, we're getting really deep into a whole bunch of hyperbole here. We're getting way into just stuff that may or probably will not, or most likely will not happen. And, again, I would just agree with Councilmember McClure that we're just agreeing to look at this and enter negotiations with them to do this. We're not actually authorizing the sale, and right now, that's gonna come later, as far as what the final product looks like.
And if I can just, the whole purpose of this being brought in front of you this evening is because Chugachmewett has a timeline also, and in order to secure a portion of their funding, they have to do this land study, and they can't do they're not gonna put that amount of money into a land study and thinking that they're not owning something. That's why we're here this evening, is for that.
Any further comments?
My comments would be that if I'm going to vote for this, I'd like to see proposals of a clause such as that there's somehow where if it's not used for this purpose, it can, city gets first right of refusal to buy it back, or something of that nature. And I'd also like to see the public works corner included. So that's.
So is that common to have someone purchase property for full price, to have clauses like, I want first? I mean, I'm actually gonna direct this at you because you brought it up. I'm just trying to find out what, you're asking for this clause. Is that a common thing that you see when someone's buying property for full price? They don't get to do.
I've seen it, yep. I've seen a home bought that they couldn't even remodel it. They couldn't touch it. It had to stay exactly as it was.
That's not the same though. You're talking about like a house. You're talking about, I'm talking about just the raw land.
And I guess I'll just make a comment that it's not a concern of mine. I think in that presentation that they've been here since 1987. I feel like the city's already been land speculators sitting on that.
Yeah.
When I was previously on council, I said we need to do something with this highway property, and I feel like this is a good project. I feel like this entity is coming forward with a project that they themselves will want to continue. So I just have to say it's not necessarily a concern of mine. Councilmember DeMoss?
Yeah, I would just say that I also would support this moving forward tonight. I also would like to see the Public Works building back in there, but I realize that, we're still gonna be negotiating. And I do like the idea of a first right of refusal. I understand that it's a pretty sealed deal with these guys, but I have had deals in the past where you do a first right of refusal on raw land. And, I mean, it could be an option or something to explore. But other than that, I would like to see it move forward.
So just to clarify, so in this already, if we enter into, say, the second time it comes back to council, we enter into agreement, they still have to do all those things that they say they're gonna do before it's finalized. Is that correct? Before the final transfer?
Well, not build the building,
But
but the replat.
The replat, yes.
Can I clarify what I think you were asking?
No, that was my question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So once we approve, the purchase and sale agreement will come back before us. Once we approve it, it's signed, and there's nothing else to approve after that.
No, they have 180 days to complete the replat and the other items.
They do, but once they complete that, it's closed. It
Yeah,
doesn't
but
come back before us.
Yeah, so my question was, if they don't do that,
Right.
that was my question.
Right,
If
okay.
we approve it the second time, when it comes back to us, and they don't do that, then it just will come back to us regardless of a reversionary clause. That was my question.
Right.
Are we ready to call the questions? Yep. go
Can I
ahead.
just get one more clarification, because Councilmember Osenga was asking if it's common. Can we get the city attorney's input of if a first right of refusal clause is something that you can find in contracts?
Well, yes, you can find it. It is not common to insert that when you're getting fair market value for property, but it's certainly not unheard of either, because there can be sentimental reasons in private transactions and reluctant seller, there's just it's not completely bizarre to have something like that in there, so.
Madam Clerk?
Voting on the approval of resolution 2021-038. Osenga,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
DeMoss.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Great, thank you. Do we need a break or keep going? Keep, 5-minute break. Is that what you were saying, John?
Yes.
5 minutes.
Thank you.
8:35 this time.
Thank you.
We are back on the record.
Thank you, back on the record at 8:35. Next on the agenda is resolution 2021-041, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2021-041 is supporting congressional funding for the Lowell Creek Flood Diversion Feasibility Project.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I'll move for the approval of resolution 2021-041.
I'll second.
Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had it on consent for, it was just a letter of support that the federal government is gonna start the process, and just us supporting the $5 million, excuse me, the $1.5 million to complete the study. Excuse me, I'm sorry, $4 million for the engineering, planning, and design. Doug can help out with,
I'll turn
I
it
know
over
there was
to
questions.
Councilmember
I don't know what the
Casagrande, did
question
you
is.
wanna ask a question?
I just have a quick question, if I may. Where can we find that feasibility study?
Send it to
Can you
you.
distribute
We can send it to you.
council?
Yeah, we can send it.
Actually, the reason that I pulled it is I was gonna see if maybe we could get it accessible on our city website, so that that's something that the public can have access to. It's kind of a big deal with this tunnel, and the possibility that it may one day become our responsibility, and that everybody is aware of the process and what's happening. And that's the only reason I pulled it. I just wanted to see if we could make this more accessible.
Is it, where would be the most appropriate place, Public Works documents or under clerk studies? Where would be a good place on the website to put it?
I'm not sure on the website, it could go on either. I mean, it's nice having it on the front where it's easy to get in like the quick links or whatever, but I think there's a lot of information. It's gonna be links. And so depending on what you're asking for as the feasibility study encompasses from the start back in 2016 when we started it at the charrette down here, and then worked our way through, and they came up with the different things. So they did have kind of a final put together. It was a lot of pages, but we could probably put that on, and then whatever additional seems to be needed, we could do that.
Maybe we could have it under Public Works?
Sure.
Public Work documents or something?
Well, at the bottom of Public Works, there's links, right?
I'm okay with whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's all?
Yeah.
That was easy.
Thanks, Doug.
Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote.
Voting on resolution 2021-041. Bosenga.
Yes.
Demas.
Yes.
McClure.
Yes.
Casagrande.
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Great, next on the agenda is resolution 2021-042. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-042 is authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Resurrection Rental to provide portable toilet rental and service in the amount of $41,477.
And we're looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-042.
I'll second.
And then administration?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mr. Casagrande pulled it, and she has some questions, and Tyler's here to answer them.
Great.
Go ahead.
I'm glad that I pulled it because the city attorney did touch on something that I was also concerned about in the report, and I think it was pertaining to this resolution and this bid. I know that in our sewer rates, there is a gray area for sewage that is dumped into the manholes, and that this vendor particularly may be dumping into our manholes, and the rate at which he dumps, I don't know if that's defined, maybe that's a Doug question, but basically my biggest concern is I just wanted to make sure that all bidders had access to knowing that they could dump into our manholes at a very defined rate, and that they weren't thinking they had to take the stuff over to Soldotna or anything.
Can administration speak to that?
I know that the previous ones who were taking their stuff back to Anchorage and used, because they had a rate with Anchorage up there, because last year was Rincacan, I believe?
Correct.
Right, and they hauled all their waste back to Anchorage. I know Doug was working with the local vendor here. I'm not sure where he's at with it, but that wasn't part of that part was part of the bid about dumping in Seward, the RFP, correct?
The scope of work, all it requires is that they transport and dispose of all waste and debris according to applicable federal, state, and local law.
And so, if I may, it is federal, state, and local law, and it's okay to be dumping here, and the other bidder could have found that out for themselves.
Correct, and they could have just contacted the Public Works and figure out where to dump and how much and all that.
If I may? The city attorney touched that there was a mistake in a bid, and I was just curious, was this the bid that you were referring to in your report?
Actually, Tyler's.
I honestly can't remember which one, but all I know is I don't
There's
think
some
we let
bug.
them out of the mistake. Or there were more than one mistake.
Correct, it got a little
One was obvious,
little
but
complicated.
one wasn't.
So it appeared that Resurrection Rentals made an error when they were entering their bid, and by entering prices instead of requested units of time in one of the categories. So we followed up with them and got follow-up clarification for that service.
So it wasn't a mistake on what people were receiving, it was a
No, it was, yeah.
mistake on what we received.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Are you raising your hand or? Do you have any further questions?
No, thank you.
Any further comments from the administration? Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2021-042. Casagrande?
No.
Demas?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-043. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-043 is amending the 2021 budget to reflect mid-cycle budget adjustments and appropriating funds.
We need a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-043.
I'll second.
Sam's here. Administration, did you just, I mean, I know it was pulled off the consent, but it probably wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of an introduction and then we'll go to questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had a work session on, forgot what day that was, that we proposed these revenue and expenditure increases and decreases based on, well, the majority being based on COVID-19, just to kind of see where we're going to be at this year. So the big revenue changes were decrease in sales tax and bed tax, and then our big revenue increases were camping fees because of the new rates. And then the SALT grant we received from the feds, and that's about $500,000. Some miscellaneous decreases in expenses within the general fund. The big one being the TYC, since we don't have operating supply costs there. And then adding back the assistant city manager position into the budget because that was not originally in the 21 budget. With the net change being an estimated use of fund balance of $752,000.
Councilmember Casagrande, did you have questions?
Yeah, I am probably about 75% full for this summer. So I feel that the estimated loss in revenue decrease of $2,030,000 is too much. And I would like to either see the, I don't think that we need to have an estimated use of fund balance in our 2021 budget. I think that we can make it with either finding a way to decrease more expenditures, and I feel like we made that really clear when we did. I felt like it was a consensus of the room when we were doing the rate study and implementing all those raises and changing everything that, you know, things are going to be tight. I don't think digging into our fund balance of $750,000 is even remotely a good idea. So I'd either like to see this go back. I won't be approving this tonight. Go back to estimate the revenues. I mean, again, this is something that's really hard for me to make an amendment to because I'm not in finance and I don't know how to balance a budget. But I do know that the estimated revenue decreases are way too high. It's not going to be that bad this year, unless I'm the only hotel that's in business and everyone's just coming to me. But people are coming, and I feel like there's a lot more expenses that can also be increased in our estimation as well.
So, Councilmember DeMoss?
I just have a question and a comment. For Sam, do you know what the occupancy you guys used for the forecasting for the campground numbers was?
We used 2019 camping nights with the new rates.
So if you're forecasting the same numbers for the same occupancy rates for 2019 in the campground, why wouldn't we be forecasting the same sales tax income for 2019?
That's a good point, actually, and I actually agree with Councilmember Casagrande. These are very, very conservative numbers in terms of revenue, and from what I hear around town, it's not going to be a horrible summer. But, and again, this is just amending the budget. We don't actually use or realize this use of fund balance. Once we get through the summer, we'll have a better idea of where we're at.
So I
And we
guess-
can turn around and just
So I guess
change
that
the
was
budget
my
again.
question. So the estimated use of fund balance, are you instantly gonna transfer out of the fund balance that 752? So how does that process work?
So then we would actually just amend the budget in our accounting system so that when we run financials, your sales tax line item is gonna be 1.6 less in the budget than in the budget book. We're just changing the budget, we're not touching actuals. Does that make sense?
So,
Councilmember?
so this is what we actually agreed to send back to you at our work session, but also this is just a projection. It's not like we're going to necessarily have to use the money. We may end up not using any fund
We'll know
balance.
more,
Yeah.
we'll know more in November.
Right.
Right.
It's just something to
November
have
sales
on the
tax
books at this point.
forecast.
Yeah.
When we get the November sales tax, we'll know more then. And I-
Go ahead.
By approving this, though, we are saying it's okay if you have to use $750,000 of fund balance. And the point that I'm trying to say is, we need to cut costs.
So where would you like to cut costs, I guess? I mean, I'm, just thought we had a work session and looked at these things. Where would do you wanna cut costs, or do you wanna increase what our projected revenue is?
Either way. It doesn't really matter.
So, okay.
Because if you increase your projected revenues right now, right? And then we start to go over budget, it's gonna come back to us. It won't just be assumed that you can dig into the reserves for $750,000. You'll have to come back to get that extra money. You'll come back and say, we're not making it, and we need to dig into the fund. And then at that time, we can say, okay, maybe we can cut $300,000 somewhere else, and maybe we only have to dig into the fund $300,000, depending on what happens.
Councilmember Alexander?
I for one am in favor of being a little conservative on our projections. I mean, I would almost rather that we actually have more money coming in than we're thinking. I just think that's a little bit better to swallow that than it is to project something that's a little tighter, and then we all of a sudden aren't getting our projections, and then we have to come back and say, hey, we need to do more cutting, or we have to come up with some new revenue. And again, we're not actually doing anything, we're just actually proposing this as a possibility.
Can I just say something? I guess my opinion is I've seen our fund balance grow and grow and grow over these years. And I don't know that the city needs to be sitting on all that money when we could continue the same level of services to our citizens. So I don't have a problem spending out of our fund balance because it's so healthy and this is a situation that we've saved for. Like, I saved my money and I have a roof leaking, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna spend money on my roof leaking because I might need my money later. Like, I feel like this is exactly the situation, and I also am conservative about how quickly we're gonna bounce back. I think we're getting good numbers early on, but if there's more of a pandemic or flights stop or restaurants, I mean, I still don't know that we're out of the woods So that would be my opinion. Councilmember Demas?
I guess to me, it just wouldn't make sense approving it if the numbers don't make sense to me with the forecasting numbers. I would like to see the revenue decreases come back less. I think that it's an unrealistic number. I understand, I prefer to take a conservative approach when forecasting, but it's just not realistic. Especially if you're lining it right next to forecasting for the exact same numbers for campground occupancy for 2019. So, I mean, to me, that doesn't make sense.
Steve?
So it's hard for me to.
Go ahead.
I just want to reiterate, the resolution you have in front of you is what council approved during that work session. We literally had a 15-minute work session, and it seems like the conversation we're having right now would have been much more appropriately to take. I mean, these are all valid points, but I guess from administration's point of view, we're bringing back before you what council already approved during that work session.
Well,
and
discussed during that work session.
Correct.
Go ahead.
I appreciate that comment, but this is also a fluid situation that's always changing. I just opened up my reservations like 3 weeks ago because I wasn't sure what I was gonna do, and I'm getting bombarded. So some of that is based on recent knowledge.
Right.
So, I can look at administration, we can postpone this to the next meeting, I don't know or you could, I don't know if there's any changes that we wanna make tonight as a suggestion. I mean, we could postpone this to the next meeting and come back with other sales tax numbers.
Madam Mayor, we can come back at the next meeting with 2019 sales tax numbers. That's something we could do?
Yeah.
We could do that.
Yeah, I would rather just come back and bring you exactly what you wanna see. So if you have specific questions besides sales tax and bed tax numbers.
So I guess, the other thing that came out of Cape Head was that we were down 68% in our sales tax. So, I mean, I know there's some anecdotal, comments that cruise ships don't put a lot of money into this economy, but I mean, that's a huge drop when we did have in-state tourism. I guess I wanna hear other people's opinion if they honestly think we're gonna be back up to 2019 numbers this year. You honestly do?
I think we're gonna be higher.
You think we'll be higher than 2019? Councilmember?
I just had a question about the campground number. That number is higher, but doesn't that also include what we actually had for revenue in 2019? I mean, it's a higher number, but it's not 800 over that, or is that?
That's the increase.
It's an $800,000 increase for our fees for campgrounds? Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cosgrove?
So what I would like to see is a budget that does not use any of our fund balance.
Okay.
And granted, we may end up digging 750 or a million or 2 million or 3 million if the wheels fall off the bus and we're wrong, but there's always an opportunity to bring that back and say we need more, or this is what we have to do.
So you could adjust the sales tax and a hotel motel room tax to meet that $752,000 shortfall.
Yeah.
Is that what we're all deciding, or?
We're having the discussion.
I don't agree with that. I think this is just fine because it's not like we're spending any of the money either way, so I think it's just crazy to move numbers around just to make it look good.
Councilmember Cosgrove?
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this to the next meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? On the postponement, I'll vote on the postponement, but I think that before we just decide from like specific anecdotal businesses, is maybe getting an economic forecast from talking to Cape Head or talking to the chamber and seeing where that is. Because I realize that you're getting good results. I am hearing from other folks that they also look like they're gonna have a good season, but those are all specific things. And also, I haven't talked to hotels if they're booking. Go ahead.
So one other thing, and that would be a good thing to do in the time that we have this postponement, is reach out and do some other non-anecdotal businesses. But I have spoke to a handful of other businesses. I did, January, February, and March have been record-breaking years. as far as visitors already. And is that gonna hold strong through, I don't know, but we're already ahead. I think we'll find when we get our first quarter sales tax back, we'll be surprised.
We are ahead from last year already for the first quarter.
From last year.
From last year.
Are we, can measure it with 2019 numbers?
That'd be great.
Okay, so I was just gonna ask for clarification, if we're gonna postpone this, we're not directing them to give us new numbers, right? Or-
So if we postpone it, it'll come back as is.
Okay,
But there'll be some suggested, there'll either be a lay down substitution or some suggested amendment. But if
Okay,
we
great.
postpone something, it comes back as is.
right, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say, I do understand that, you know, everything's emerging, but I would hope that, I don't wanna start doing where we have the same things in multiple meetings. So I understand, I changed my mind, I asked a question tonight that I could have asked days ago and it just, you know, I want us to, if we have something before us, to keep things moving forward. I'll just make that comment, but I'm happy to vote for the postponement. Any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Voting to postpone resolution 2021-043. Casagrande?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Demoss?
Yes.
Hosenga?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Next on the agenda is, I lost my agenda. I think next on the agenda is mayor appoint special, did I miss any?
No.
Mayor appoint special ad hoc council study committee of no less than 3 members for the purpose of updating the annual evaluation forms and procedures for the city manager, city clerk, and city attorney. Madam Clerk, did you want to give an overview?
This is a follow-up to previous conversations with council and a work session that was held to discuss, I'm looking for the statement, to discuss the process. And it was sort of put off for a little bit. Council at the work session said, well, we'll assign a committee to it later on in a while. So I'm just bringing that back before you to whether you want to take action and form a committee to take on that project.
And I think the title says of no less than, but I think it should be up to 3, right?
Well, if it is to be a council study committee, which is just a proposal, then it would be no less than. That's the way the language is. But if you wish, you could do a different type of a committee.
Okay, just the memorandum said up to 3 council members, so I wasn't sure. So if it's 3, if it's more than 3, then they'll have to notice those meetings. If there's
Right.
4.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay, I just wanna, if 4 council members are on this, then the meetings will be noticed and public
Correct.
can attend.
Correct, yep.
So we don't have all the council members here, so it seems like we could vote them on the committee. But let's see where the interest is.
I have a proposal
Yeah.
that, of the existing council members, Rissy and I were on the last committee, so it should be new blood.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recusing. And I also have a proposal, since it was his idea, John needs to be on the committee. Other than that, I have no opinion.
I'll happily serve on the committee. I'll look at it. John, is that an okay that you'll be
Yes.
on it? So that's 2. And Liz, so we got
So
it.
that spreads the wealth, right?
But we do have to tell Councilmember Cease and Vice Mayor Baclan that they're.
There's something special coming for them.
Okay, Madam Clerk,
great.
so the mayor appoints myself, Councilmember Demas, and Councilmember Osenga.
That's great. Cool. Thank you.
And we'll start working with you on examples and timing. Okay. Next is schedule a work session to learn more about the public employees retirement system. The suggested date is May 24th at 6 p.m. And I know you solicited comments or asking questions, and I might just say what I would like to get out of it. You know, we always hear, you can't
take that position away because then it's in person perpetuity and it costs us much money. Having a clear breakdown of that would be very helpful. And I'd also, what they tell us might not be, I'd like to have some fact checking of what they're telling us, because they clearly are coming from one direction to protect that fund, which more power to them, but, I'd just like to have an objective look at what they're telling us, but that's what I'd like to get out of it. I saw some head nodding, is there anything else with that?
I would also, I think I know the answer, but just have creations of new positions, the difference of a temporary position, a full-time position, a part-time position, a seasonal position, and how, does anybody do new positions go into PERS? Like those kind of questions.
So new positions go into PERS, but it has to be approved through council for any new positions. So temporary positions are not in PERS. Part-time positions are not in PERS.
If you can just, when we have that, just lay it all out.
So those are on the list, and I know I've got questions about PERS. We've got a new finance director who's from Ohio, so she's got questions about PERS. We reached out to the state of Alaska, and we intentionally picked the state because that's also Jeanette's first day, and she's gonna have some more questions about PERS. So it's gonna be a very full hour, so.
And I think an hour's sufficient. I think that'll, if we have any follow-up questions, and they can give us additional.
The 24th.
Any further comments on that? Do you have enough direction? And Madam Clerk, do you have that meeting set? Do we need to vote on that, or?
We don't have to vote, no, there's no objection.
Next is consideration for resuming pre-COVID normal operations, and that's specific to the council meetings. So, Madam Clerk, you have an agenda statement that starts on page 36, and I guess we started to talk about this, but it's good to have all the things outlined. Who wants to kick it off?
For opening up the meetings here, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it depends on how much you want to open it. Tonight it was like, holy cow. There was a bunch of people in here, and masks or no mask, I think masks should be here, but I'm all for opening it up just safely. We do have COVID cases in this town. I believe we're above 20 something now. And that's in the last 2 weeks. So I would just rather be cautious and be careful if we do. And I'm not against opening up. I'm all for it. We just need to do it safely.
I'll say, I was very ready to jump the gun and really get everything opened up, and I have COVID fatigue and, all of that, but I agree with Councilmember Osenga where I would like to try to figure out a way to do it safe and make people feel, because we do have cases now again in Seward, and did feel pretty full in here tonight, but.
Well, I'm also in favor of opening it up. I think there was no direction as to how people could pack the place tonight. And I think if we were to open up, like we talked about the last time we talked about this, having limited numbers in here and people in the hall, you've also pointed out there is now a speaker in the hall, not a speaker, but people can hear out there. And so to have actual attendance, the planning and, which meeting was it this week I watched? Planning and zoning. They were here. And it went just fine. If they can do it, I think we can do it and just get it back to normal. I also, you reported once again that in terms of Zoom, there's only 1 or 2 people ever using it anymore.
Yeah, we had.
And you also reported that they would give back some of our money that we spent if we dropped out the Zoom. I'm all for getting rid of Zoom at this point because it's not really being used. It was a good idea at the time, and probably we could go back if, all hell breaks loose or something, but, I would like to get us back to normal with spacing restrictions or whatever we need, it's my opinion.
Whatever the body sees.
what would be, I also would like to open responsibly, what would be the total number? Is there a recommendation for the total number of people in this room for COVID?
When COVID first started, the
Yeah.
fire chief came and did measurements for us and determined that if all the chairs were spaced out, 6 people could be in the room, in the audience.
And that's at 10 feet or 6 feet?
6 feet.
Then we also have the hallway too.
So that's, and so if you, the only concern I have is how are we gonna manage that? Or how am I gonna manage that from here, the audience or the public activity? So we're gonna have to,
Well, I think,
we'll have to figure that out if that's the way you want it.
Dustin switches from Zoom to door guy.
Yeah, we'll
I
need,
think
like
it
I'll
will
need
be
to engage somebody to help manage people.
and proper signage too. I think people don't know what to expect. Like, nobody knew what they were supposed to do in here tonight, and that was just fine, you know, but had there been signage, I mean, or something, you know, or just, anyway.
Yeah.
That was kind of an anomaly because of the awards or the
Yeah.
proclamations.
What about getting everyone back to the dais? How comfortable do people feel about our normal spacing for us?
I have no problem with it.
Masks.
I would prefer masks, but I've had my shots, so
Well, I
I'm
do
fully
too.
vaccinated.
I know, I'm okay.
Not wearing a mask anymore.
I
I'm
would like
totally
to,
fine to sit over and time out or sit away from everyone if everyone wants to go to the dais. I don't want to wear a mask.
I'll wear a mask at the dais if that's a thing. If that's where we're at.
well,
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, in terms of configurations, I guess it would be kind of weird if we just moved the table in closer, we could accommodate more people in the audience too.
That's what I was just thinking, if we get rid of the tables, then
Or
we-
just even if we had 2 people sitting or 3, I mean, if we could
Like
squish the tables closer is what I meant, smaller tables, you know?
Or you can just put one
Like-
Or some,
Like a 2-tier thing. you mean?
yeah, I don't know, just a different configuration might work, you know? You know what, the Borough Assembly reconstructed their whole, chambers? And they've got a 2-tier deal. And so there's like, I don't know how you get
Perfect.
chosen if you're on top or whatever, but, you know, conceivably, we could have a couple, like, I'm thinking desks or
Short
something.
chairs. You can sit on the floor in the front.
Yeah, short chairs, or- I don't know, I mean,
I'm up for whatever.
creativity is the thing, right?
Get you a mat.
Well, I'm just gonna throw it out there that, I think the majority of us wear masks, but I do not, I have a problem with a council member not wearing a mask if they either have a health or any sort of concern about not wearing a mask. That personally does not bother me.
Well, I think it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, given.
So I think it would be great to get everyone back on the dais and people can just either choose, make the personal choice to wear a mask or not wear a mask. Because we're not gonna go through and ask people if they've had COVID or been vaccinated, so I think for council,
Show your card.
yeah. Does anyone have a problem with that? I know we're not all here, but
We're good with it.
is that acceptable? What about people coming in? I think that we should request masks, but if someone again has a personal health or an ethical concern about not wearing a mask, and that's where I think they can also wait in the hallway and then would have the ability to come in and provide testimony if they choose not to wear a mask. Is there any objections with that? No? Okay, just checking.
This-
Go ahead.
This also would be subject to the reality of the time. I mean, if
Yeah,
things go
right.
south, we,
Yeah.
Exactly.
but, you know, that's how it is nowadays, right?
So I also think that Zoom was helpful for a season, but I'm okay with us concentrating on getting more people in person as opposed to concentrating on Zoom. Is there any objections to that?
No.
Go ahead.
So I did have a constituent have great concern that they still don't feel comfortable in person with a mask, period. They're still scared, so. I know it's a lot for us, especially for Brenda to juggle if she's gonna be juggling Zoom and.
Well, we went for a long time in the beginning with doing phone calls.
Phone calls,
and
that's what I was
written
gonna say, phone
comments.
calls.
So,
So yeah, that's the second piece. So
yeah.
did
Okay.
picture us continuing with phone
Oh.
calls
Okay.
and making sure that even if we're done with Zoom, that we'll continue, people can send in written comments and also be called on the phone.
Yeah, because the only thing in that regard that Zoom would take away when we would be raising the hand, and nobody uses it hardly, so
Right.
it really would not.
More of
I
a
don't
work
think you'll
session
miss it.
type thing.
Right.
Could we possibly, we can't Zoom work sessions only, because once we give it up, we give it up.
Yeah. It's the same though, we've made the same provisions for work sessions
You
as
can
we have
call.
for meetings.
Okay.
So I'll be sure, and people hold me accountable, which I didn't do it during that.
That's a good point.
If someone, but
I-
you had said if someone wants to be called during a work session,
Yeah.
and just no one signed up.
Yeah. I had
Okay.
one citizen today who inquired about it, but she ended up not getting back to me, so.
Okay, so if people have comments, they wanna make it work sessions, and they can listen on the radio, watch on Facebook, or watch on YouTube, so that when they do get called,
Or watch on GCI.
YouTube
Or watch on
GCI.
GCI.
Yeah, not Facebook. Okay. We don't Facebook Live. Well, yes, the Seward
there's a non-city Facebook
civic
Live.
engagement does.
Okay.
I'll let them know. Thank you.
Any other details we need to hammer out now?
So starting April 26th?
Fourth.
Six.
Fourth.
The
I mean-
work session.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Our class.
Starting
No,
April.
that's
April
26th.
I'm sorry.
City limits. Two things about what might happen this summer. There are still people that have been given like gift certificates that are coming back. So some of the revenues will not necessarily be the same as they would be in a normal summer. And then the other thing, I really think if there was a way for us to dig in to the cruise ship revenue, because that's the piece that's gonna be completely missing, right? Other people are coming, and it does look like it's gonna be a good summer. But if there was a way to figure out, what percentage of the revenue is really coming from the cruise ship people alone, that would be a number to really work with, right? And I think that was it, thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, no one signed up for comments?
No, ma'am.
Next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start with administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to, congratulate the Seward Middle School students for winning the Battle of the Books. Also congratulate Dallas TV, and, the good thing the correctional officer Jordan Police did, and Morgan Woodard, it's huge, they're saving a life. So kudos to that crew and, the training that they had to see what was coming. So, that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
I'd like to echo what Norm said. We truly do live in a very special community. It was, the proclamations this evening were very heartfelt and deep and special, and really a great reminder of how lucky we are to be surrounded by such amazing people of all generations, which was cool. And then I'd also like to ask administration to please start working with the community development to bring forward a replat for the remaining land at over at the Army Air Force, and to hopefully bring that forward as soon as possible.
Councilmember DeMoss?
Congratulations to everyone that received proclamation tonight, and that's all I have.
Councilmember
I
Singer?
just have a question about, Councilmember Casagrande just directed the administration to do something. Is that going to be a one single council member's direction, or is that going to become something that's going to be dealt with by this body as a whole?
Well,
That's just a question.
I think it's a request. I mean, they can talk to her, but they definitely, we didn't take a vote on it, but I think that having that request, they could call and discuss it with her, she could call it, discuss it with them, and they could either move forward or ask a question or.
Well, I'm just concerned because it's not in, this could have been addressed when we had our discussion about this earlier while we were on on record, is all I'm saying. And it just sounds like somebody is directing administration without the rest of our consent, without us actually having any say. And it's actually, I think, effort, cost, time, money, and I don't know that that's something that, I know I'm not going to try and direct somebody to do something that might have an impact on somebody's workday without full council consent.
So bring back an agenda statement to the council meeting? To get council voting on voting full force? I mean, it would be interesting to just have the conversation, and it might be something that administration would want to approve just as a good idea, or if it's not something that they're gonna approve, can we bring it back, someone can bring it back to council if they'd like to see it and get a vote?
I'm not sure what Councilmember Osenga wants.
I want this to be a full council discussion. I don't want this to be a direction from one single council member.
So can I ask for council to vote if we want to direct administration to bring forward?
The problem is that it hasn't been publicly noticed.
Okay. So what you're saying is you would prefer that I bring forward an agenda statement to direct the administration to move forward as soon as possible with replatting the additional lots?
I guess, in my opinion, which I'm just one member of this body, if we bring up something to administration and they think it's a good idea or something that they would like to, that they say, yeah, that is a good idea, we want to move forward with it, not because one person directed them, but because they'd like to pursue that.
Right.
If you guys have that conversation and they say, that doesn't seem like a great idea, then you should absolutely bring it to council to have a policy decision made.
Oh.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, so I think what you're saying is I can move forward with working with administration with the replat, and if they say it's a great idea.
I think that council at any point can call and have a conversation with administration, and you'd be willing to talk about what that might mean.
So,
I just want to say something quick. They've always directed me, administration has always directed me when I've asked them to do something, they've always told me, okay, this is more of a body thing, bring this to council. So I feel like if they're having a discussion, they'll know when to draw the line.
and that's very true. My point is that this is a broader issue that was brought up and debated, not this particular issue as far as replatting, but this was already dealt with in a public venue, and we're beyond that. And I'm not sure. The other thing is that there's questions. What is being asked of administration to do? I don't know. I don't know what beyond what she said in asking for this. So to me, it just seems like it's a bigger issue than just someone asking for, hey, what a great idea this sounds like. Let's try it. Is what I'm getting at.
So we'll go back to you still have a chance at comments, but I'm just gonna throw this out here and say, sounds like if Councilmember Casagrande and administration have a conversation, a meeting about what you'd like to see, then we'll go from there on if they feel like it's something they can move forward with, or if they ask you to bring something to council.
Thank you.
Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
Does that work for
Yes.
you? Okay. So I'll let you go ahead and have comments.
Congratulations to our Battle of the Book Stars. I wanted to say congratulations to the CV family and their accomplished dog sledding career, and to Woodard and Pletch for their actions during their service for our city. And let's be safe out there and be safe.
Okay, echoing the congratulations to everyone. Battle of the Books is a big deal. Also, I watched Seward Jr. Swim magnificently over the weekend. And I would think that one of us might eventually have some proclamation for Lydia Jacoby, because that was just, at least I watched 3 of her swims, thanks to someone who posted on Facebook. And you know, if you don't know, she's like up there with the Olympians, and it's just really cool to see local kids. I think I'm a local kid that did good. You know, it's good to see, and John too. But that was really fun, and to watch that. And I'm happy that we're moving ahead from the work session earlier. I'm happy we're moving ahead towards a new animal shelter. And I was joking around with a few people before that when we have the big grand opening, I'm expecting everyone to get a free kitten, because that's the reason that I would like to go. Maybe get a new regime
No more animals
too.
out there. They're all gone.
You know, and but I understand also as an addendum that it's getting pretty hard to get a cat at the shelter because people through the COVID have been adopting pets, and so I have some friends that they went and looked, and well, they didn't want what was there, but you know, usually there's all these choices. So yeah, if you're expecting a free kitten right now, it's not quite time yet. And it was really good to see Dan Seavey. I get to hang out with him. He's on our Resurrection Bay Historical Society board, and has been for years. But we haven't had in-person meetings, and he doesn't Zoom. So that's the first time I've seen his face in probably a year, so that was pretty exciting too. So, congratulations to all those folks. I think Seward's a really good place to be from and to be living now.
I think today was a great start to opening up meetings. It was nice to have citizens here and get that feedback during work session and the regular meeting. Congratulations to everyone. I'll echo those. But while I was in Kenai, I also stopped by the Kenai Peninsula driving instruction. And they're not giving me any money or a finder's fee, but I wanted to say to all the Seward youth, I think it's a shame we don't have driver's instruction in Seward. And these guys do have a Seward special. For 2 hours, they'll train you, and then they'll parlay you right into your driver's test. They also have a whole day, Saturday of instruction. So I think that our DMV does have this information, but I brought back brochures, and I hope that more Seward kids take advantage of that, and maybe if there's a large enough group, it would be nice for them to come over and do a Seward specific training. So with that, I will adjourn at 9:25. Thank you. Are your kids still